That must be the most common phrase in the 21st century. Can you please mute yourself? Sorry about that. Um, uh, I'm I'm very pleased to be part of this panel. It's an honor to be joining such distinguished guests, but alas, we're here to talk about a very grave moment in modern human history. I want to speak very briefly about the obligations of international law. Um, some say that international law is worthless, and what has been perpetrated in Gaza over the last 22 months is a exhibit A with respect to that. I want to be able to say that international law actually has standing, that international law actually is important for all of us. It's the one common human document, if you like, that we've created in the last 80 years in the ashes of the Second World War that virtually every country in the world has signed on to. They themselves have put their signatures on all of these human rights and humanitarian conventions and treaties. They can be held now by pointing to the fact that they are falling short of what they promised us that they would wind up doing. So, what does international law say with respect to this? First of all, and if we recall the history of the 20th century as to why these laws with respect to the deliberate infliction of starvation on a civilian population came into account. We have to remember the German genocide in Namibia in 1904 and 1906, where the German troops used starvation and the cutting off of water supplies to a number of the Namibian people as a means of trying to exert control. We saw this again with respect to the Armenian genocide against the Armenians in 1915, or the Allied blockade of Lebanon during the First World War, where starvation wound up being used. We see this again with the Nigerian genocide in Biafra in the late 1960s. And here we are today in the 21st century, grappling with a 20th century problem that is the continued settler colonialism of Palestine, and the willingness of the international community to forget their obligations with respect to self-determination, to forget their obligations with respect to upholding UN resolutions and modern international law, enforcing a military blockade with the knowledge that it's going to starve the civilian population is a clear violation of international law, is a violation of the Geneva Conventions, the beating heart of international humanitarian law. It's a violation in many cases of the crime against humanity, and in certain circumstances, it can be part of the violation of the 1948 Genocide Convention. What we have on the record so far is that, as Chris has mentioned, that the International Criminal Court found reason to believe that Israel has used starvation as a method of warfare in issuing its arrest warrants against Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant in November of 2024. And that was before starvation reached the peak that it's reached right now. We are witnessing the denial of food, leading to starvation, leading to famine, which is almost unheard of in the modern world. We also have, as Chris has mentioned, the ICJ provisional measures based on the application brought by South Africa in January of 2024 against Israel under the Genocide Convention. And we've had 3 issuances of provisional measures by the International Court of Justice in January, March, and May of 2024, including the warning that the use of starvation is prohibited under international law, and that Israel must allow the free flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza at scale to the population of the 2.2 million Palestinians who wind up living there. By deliberately cutting off vital supplies, including those relating to sexual and reproductive health, Israel is once again weaponizing aid, as the UN has said repeatedly over the last 4 months. These are serious violations of both international human rights law, international humanitarian law. They amount very likely to war crimes and crimes against humanity under the Rome Statute of 1998. And we have to keep in mind that the 1948 Genocide Convention prohibits the deliberate infliction on a group of conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, whole or in part. My successor, Francesca Albanese, has been very clear in the last three reports that she has issued beginning in March 2024 that a genocide is unfolding in Gaza. She is among the only UN officials that I recall who've actually used the G word in describing what is going on. I have seen other UN officials walk right up to the red line and say what we're witnessing is our conditions of life that may bring about the destruction of a group, which echoes the definition of genocide in the 1948 Genocide Convention, but they haven't yet crossed that line that we need to hear with respect to genocide. But we are having other responsible and respected voices in international politics say this. We've had Joseph Borrell, the former vice president for the European Union with respect to international affairs, say in May that this is a genocide. We've had Martin Griffiths, the former UN Undersecretary for Humanitarian Aid, say in June of this year that this is a genocide. We've had Amnesty International say that it's a genocide. Genocide and the creation of the Genocide Convention wasn't put into place in order to allow historians 20 years from now or 30 years from now to use a yardstick of what to determine that there was a genocide in the distant past. The Genocide Convention is there to compel action now against a genocide or the possible genocide in the making. And that's what we see with starvation as the cornerstone of Israeli action with respect to Gaza, beginning in full force in March of 2025, when it completely blocked all humanitarian aid wind up entering. Let me end off with this. What matters is not what countries say. I welcome the statement made by 28 nations of the global north issued earlier on this week with respect to Gaza. But it doesn't matter what they say. It matters what they do. This war, this military campaign, and this genocide, this use of starvation could not have gone a day longer had the countries of the global north used their power through their military supplies to Israel and through their trade and diplomatic relations with Israel. They could have cut that off, and this war would have stopped the day after with regards to this. This is what needs to happen, not strong words, strong action. Thank you very much.